right?
Exactly.
So if a house has been on the market in this area, say longer than 2 or 3 weeks, and let's say it's in a great location, and let's say that the house shows, well, it's a good house, it's a good looking house, then what would you tell the seller?
Well, Don, actually, you probably know that I also sell, and I am selling quite a bit now. After 21 days, I review the comparable sales in that neighborhood, because if my house has not had any offers at that point, I know that we are most likely priced too high for the market. Even though initially it may have looked like that was what the property should sell for. Sometimes, of course, the seller says, I'd like to try it a little bit higher. Then about every 3 weeks, I recommend reevaluating where you're at, because in our market, unless you're in a very high dollar market or you're perhaps further out, homes typically are going to have activity within the first 3 or 4 weeks. When I say activity, people coming back a second time, people making an offer, whatever, especially inside the Beltway.
Inside the Beltway. Okay, so in Northern Virginia, Maryland, D.C., basically the D.C. area, would you say that real estate sales are hot right now?
Yes, yes. Actually, there's a shortage of inventory overall. If you're in the lower price range, there's multiple offers on almost all the properties, assuming they're priced right. We have very few foreclosure properties on the market right now, either as bank-owned or third-party, like Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac owned properties. So there's definitely a shortage.
Diane, you mentioned that sales are brisk in this area. Do you attribute any of that to the low interest rates? Interest rates are the lowest they've ever been, that I can ever remember.
Absolutely, lowest that I can remember also. Definitely the low interest rates are helping people to jump off that fence that they've been sitting on. There is still some people who are concerned about what's going to happen in the economy and so on, and that's why I'm sure why our rental market is doing so well also. I can't tell you how many people I'm getting calling me about renting properties also. But certainly the sales have increased because we have limited inventory, we have low rates. That is causing people to come out in droves trying to buy properties, and as I mentioned before, especially in the lower price properties. But everybody's benefiting from those low interest rates.
Have you sold any of the Fannie Mae Home Path properties yet? Have you been involved in any of that?
Yes, I have.
And
yes, I have.
It appears to be a pretty good deal here for the buyer.
Absolutely.
If they use the recommended title company for Fannie Mae, then the closing costs are paid.
That's right.
Yeah, that is an extremely good program. But I think it shows the trend of Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac not being willing to accept short sales as readily as they were before. Loans that they have insured and that the lenders are servicing. So you're probably going to see less short sales, and it could be more of a waste of time for people that are buying short sales. Could you give our viewers a definition of a short sale?
A short sale is simply a property that the seller owes more than, or probably owes more than what the property is worth. And what many people don't realize when they go to look at a short sale, the lender has not already, the bank that has the loan, has not already agreed to that short sale. That process doesn't actually even start typically until there's an offer on the property. So there's a time involved with the short sales. A buyer, if they're just coming into town, they need a place to live, short sale is not going to be for them. It can take anywhere from 4 to 6 months, and sometimes you'll get lucky and have less time than that, but typically it's going to be probably an average 4 months before you even know if the lender's going to accept that offer.
But the lender is under no obligation to even respond to an offer like that.
Oh,
really?
Certainly. Yeah, they are not. You're correct.
Their agreement is between the owner of the property and the bank, and if the owner tries to sell a property arbitrarily on their own, the bank doesn't even have to respond to the offer.
That's correct. And actually, as an agent, I did sell a property in which the bank came back and said they did not feel that the seller was in need of a short sale. They felt that the seller had sufficient assets to be able to make that payment, and they would not agree to that short sale.
So it wasn't a distress situation for the seller. The seller was just trying to get out of the house, trying to use that as a way to, as a strategy to get out from a house that was underwater.
Correct.
Are the how about deficiency judgments? Are the banks going after sellers as far as you're concerned about deficiency judgments if there's not enough money?
It's interesting that you asked that question because I was just at a continuing education class last week in which the attorney told us that there are a couple of banks now, one in particular that is starting to pursue the liens, the judgment. They're getting judgments for the deficiency in these properties. So sometimes the lender will sign off on that, will not require the the seller to pay that money back, but many times they do, and some of them are now taking those next steps to pursue those sellers that have the deficiencies.
The information given us today is very important. I'm sure many people fall into some kind of category here of what we've talked about. And I really appreciate you being on the show. I appreciate your insight. And we hope that you've enjoyed this edition of the Real Estate Journal. And we hope it's been beneficial to you. And we'd like to thank Diane Quigley for being on our show.